ANC Secretary General, or should I say Deputy Secretary General, Jesse Duarte is the latest ANC leader to visit former President Jacob Zuma. Zuma's daughter posted an image of Zuma, Duarte and the former SAA chairperson Dudu Myeni, and they were in a meeting. In the image posted by Zuma's daughter, that's Duduzile Zuma Sambudla, the former president is flanked by the two women. Now, Sambudla Zuma also posted a video earlier showing Myeni donating chicken, fizzy drinks and bottled water to Zuma. Myeni then thanks the former president for allowing her to visit. Now, the ANC has yet to comment on Duarte's visit.
Today I came here for nothing but to say to you, I see you continue to host people in Kandla. I see people are coming in large numbers. But what I've been observing as a woman is that you continue to dine with them and you still are happy to host people, as you always say that you love people, and it shows in how you interact with them. We appreciate your leadership. We appreciate all the lessons that we've learned from you. All I'm saying today is that as a pensioner who has no shares in any mining company, that we know very well from the sufferings of your Jacob Zuma Foundation, I said, let me come and give the little that we could afford with my family to say, please continue during your pension years that God has given you to enjoy your people, to continue to serve them, and to continue as well to lead us, because we still want to tap from your wisdom.
Well, staying with this story, questions and concerns have emerged over the integrity of the African National Congress. This comes after the visit of ANC Deputy Secretary General Jesse Duarte to former President Jacob Zuma. Meanwhile, confirmation has been given for a meeting between the former president and the ANC top six. It is believed that they will encourage the former president to appear before the Zondo Commission of Inquiry.
You know what is very sad? It clearly shows that Cyril Ramaphosa is losing power in the ANC, and maybe has lost the power in the ANC. And Jacob Zuma is the unshakable center of in the ANC. And so if Jacob Zuma is an unshakable center in the ANC, a governing party, one wonders how much influence is he having in running our government or in taking certain decisions in our government, you know. And also, it really compromises the integrity of the ANC if the governing party is going to kiss the ring of someone whom they told us that he is no longer suitable to be the president of the country. Remember that they recalled him, but today they are going back to him and negotiate on issues that currently are supposed to be executed by the institutions that are empowered by our constitution. And the others are saying possible here the ANC is looking for a political solution, and really that is compromising the ANC as an organization that is governing the country. Also, at the same time, it shows that the current leadership in the ANC is very powerless.
On to this now. The Western Cape High Court has cleared ANC MP Bongani Bongo of corruption. The High Court judge, John Hlope, granted Bongo's Section 174 application, saying there was no evidence on which a court would reasonably return a finding of guilt. Now, Bongo was charged with corruption on allegations of attempting to bribe Eskom inquiry evidence leader Ntutuzelo Vanara. That was back in 2017. Well, Bongo's victory, without a doubt, could have implications to the ANC's step-aside guidelines. Now, ANC MP Bongani Bongo joins me in studio now. Advocate, thank you very much for making the time to talk to us. The feeling of vindication is what you expressed at the steps of the courts when you ultimately walked out. That's what you said to reporters. But I would like for you to take us back to what it's like to be an accused person, accused of a serious crime such as that of corruption. What's it like to stand in the dock?
Oh, thank you, Goli, and good afternoon to you and your viewers at home. I think, like I said at the doorstep, that I felt vindicated about what I always termed as a conspiracy and as an attempt to frame me as a person who's corrupt. And I always said that I never took anyone's money and I never attempted to bribe anyone. And I've made this statement very clear from the onset, both to the leadership of the African National Congress and to the Ethics Committee of Parliament. By the way, which Ethics Committee also did not make any finding after I have appeared in front of it together with Vanara.
I want to talk about the accusation against you. You have always maintained that these are trumped-up charges against you. They are politically motivated, is what you have been saying. I want to start with the first, and that is Advocate Ndutuzelo Vanara. Why would Advocate Ndutuzelo Vanara choose you out of anyone else he could have chosen to accuse of such a crime? Why you?
No, thank you very much, Toli. You will note that, one, when this accusation were made, or when the said meeting took place between myself and Vanara, I was not a minister. I was just an ordinary member of parliament, not a chairperson, not even a whip. We had had a discussion about the issues that were happening around the issue of parallel inquiries that were taking place.
You had a discussion with who?
With Vanara.
Okay.
A pure discussion that was on the basis of a lawyer-to-lawyer discussion.
This was between the two of you?
That was between the two
Where
of us.
was this? Within the halls of Parliament or somewhere outside?
Within the walls of Parliament.
Right.
What happened was, 16 days later, I was appointed a Minister of State Security. After I was appointed a Minister of State Security, 10 days later, Mr. Vanara crafted an affidavit that seeks to say a meeting that I had with him was a meeting of requesting to give him a blank check, because he himself is not sure whether I said a blank check or I said name a price. So we only learned in court that he formulated a view that the discussion was amounting to a bribe. So after that discussion, after those days, then he never even reported the case to the police. He never reported the case to anyone. We learned later that he went to Stellenbosch. In Stellenbosch, and I'm sure you know Stellenbosch and what it is famous of, that's when the discussion was taken between him, Pindela, Kaso, and Jawa, where they said, we need to take this matter up, and that's how they've taken the matter up. And
people watching you right now, or people listening to you right now, may not know what is Stellenbosch or what happens in Stellenbosch. Perhaps take them along in your explanation of what you think Advocate Vanara went to do in Stellenbosch and the subsequent accusation.
No, you know, there is a popular view in this country that this country is run from Stellenbosch. So they went to Stellenbosch, where they've decided that they must come up with dealing with this matter in the manner in which they dealt with it. So the matter.
Who sits in Stellenbosch?
You know who sits in Stellenbosch.
No.
You know very
I don't
well.
want to assume who sits in Stellenbosch.
But that is beside the point. Let's get to the real matter.
But it's important for viewers to know who sits in Stellenbosch and plots these conspiracies?
I will one day come to you and give a clearer explanation as to who sits there.
But this is exactly the problem that people complain about, that accusations are made against certain people. They then make counter claims only for them to say, no, I'll put it in a book some years later. Why don't you tell us here and now who sits in Stellenbosch and actually makes these decisions for our country?
I will come on another date to speak about the Stellenbosch meeting, but suffice for today that these individuals who concocted this affidavit, which later put me into prison, they went to Stellenbosch where the discussion was taken and an agreement was made that an affidavit must be crafted, which was submitted 16 days later after the meeting took place.
Before you move on, I see you are eager to move on from this question around Stellenbosch. It is important, Advocate Vanara. You are a lawyer.
Bongo.
Advocate Bongo,
yes.
rather. I'm sorry about that. It is important that you take us into your confidence, what it is that you know happens in Stellenbosch, because for all I know, as an ordinary South African, the decisions that are taken about this country and where it ought to go, they should be taken at Mahlambandlopu, if not in Pretoria, Mahlambandlopu, then in Denys, that's in Cape Town, by the president of the country. So who makes decisions for the president? Because that's the implication of what you're saying.
I am going to come on another date to unpack that aspect. Suffice to say that today, for the viewers and you to know that this decision, it is on record on the judgment of the court that they had to go to Stellenbosch, where this decision was taken, and an agreement to craft an affidavit that seeked to say I was part of a bribe or I was part of a blank check were taken.
And would you possibly have evidence, clear evidence, to prove that Advocate Vanara went to Stellenbosch in order for him to get these orders, if you like?
It is in the court judgment. If you read the court judgment, it is summarized there. He himself says he had to go to Stellenbosch. After the said meeting, he went to Stellenbosch where he met Advocate Pindela, Taso, and Chawa.
Now, a fellow MP, Suprama Mapilo,
yes,
who was with you, has blasted law enforcement to say, and I want to quote exactly what he says, he was accusing them of not investigating their cases properly. He then goes on to say they not only go after people, arresting them, but they go after these people when they have, and I quote, not thoroughly, empirically researched their cases. As a person who is familiar with the law, do you agree with this sentiment?
I agree with that sentiment. If you read the judgment now, the judge says the investigating officer never investigated this matter. So he just got this thing, and maybe for the benefit of the viewers, what has happened was that Mr. Steenhuisen, not Vanara, Mr. Steenhuisen went to the police and opened a case and made an affidavit that he was told by Vanara that he was bribed by Bongo. As a result, the police came to me and took a statement. I gave the statement, and then later was arrested. So the judge found that there was no investigation done by the police. And if you look at the case and what the 174 implication, it simply says that there was no thorough work done by both the police and the National Director of Public Prosecution on the basis that we got a Section 174. A Section 174 is different from what we call an acquittal. Section 174, it mainly deals about the prima facie. What does that mean? It means from the face of the charges, there is no case. I have no case to answer to as a person. So what does that mean? What does it tell you about these institutions that are meant to investigate, are meant to protect all South Africans in ensuring that our integrity, our credibility is protected? You can't just get somebody reporting a case, you take it to the police, somebody is arrested and being prosecuted, and it runs for a good 3 years in the public domain. The whole media space, not only in South Africa, in the continent and worldwide, it is reported that former State Security Minister is arrested for a bribe when that thing was not there. It's not true. It has never happened. So if our state institutions are going to be used and they are not going to be applied due diligence as they charge and as they dispense the rule of law in this country, then we're going to have a problem going forward.
I'm going to come back to the issue around the claim that state institutions are being used to fight political battles. But just one issue I want to pick with you. Someone says an acquittal of an accused by a court of law due to the absence of sufficient evidence doesn't mean that the man is innocent.
It is not an acquittal, it's a discharge in terms of Section 174. Like I told you, that what it means is that when you look at the charges from the face of it, there's nothing that is there to be answered. They don't stick to me. But it was to be different if it was to be me having to go to the box and saying something, and then later they say, no, evaluating the evidence of both of you, we think that you are not guilty. That would mean I'm being acquitted. So this is a Section 174 of the Criminal Procedure Act discharge, which means even yourself, looking at the charges, whereas we are not a judge, would have said, but it does not make sense, because they are saying I bribed Vanara. By his own admission and admission of all the witnesses, that this person that they wanted to bribe did not have capacity to can collapse the inquiry that you were talking about. That is one. Second to that, how do you bribe somebody when the former president then, President Zuma, as he then was, had already announced that there will be a commission of inquiry, which is now popularly known as Zondo? Who in his right thinking mind would go to a person, one, who does not have capacity to can collapse the inquiry, two, and waste whatever money he has to bribe somebody when a commission of inquiry was already pronounced on in terms of the law by the executive?
All right. Let's talk about the political element of what you say these charges were based on. You're saying that these were trumped-up charges, politically motivated. Politically motivated to do what exactly? Because, as you say, you were simply a backbencher, if I were to put words into your mouth. You were an ordinary MP. I was
an ordinary MP. At the time, I had a meeting with the so-called advocate. But 16 days later, I was appointed Minister of State Security. That's when they thought, after 16 days, they must go and craft this affidavit and send it to the media and everyone, which landed me into the Ethics Committee of Parliament, which I also attended and respected. The Ethics Committee itself said the evidence of Vanara does not make sense. They need further witnesses to corroborate whatever he's saying. Then later on, in Parliament, where I sit in Parliament, it's everyone who's coming from a debate pass by me. I met Minister Pravin Gordhan. I tried to shake his hand and say, good debate. He said, no, you can't greet me. You can't greet me. You are working with the EFF to collapse this government. And I will show you something. Later on, 2 weeks later, you heard the story of that happened to me. I was given some poison, I don't know by who. When I was in Cuba, I went to Cuba for treatment. When I was in Cuba, I got a call from the Hawks that you must come back. You are arrested. If you don't come back, we'll have to jack you down. I said, I then requested the doctors to release me, to come back and face the charges that were brought to me. And when this incident happened, of Minister Pravin Gordhan, on the same day I went to report to the national chair of the ANC, Kwete. But this is what has happened today.
Why didn't you go to the police? Someone tried to kill you, clearly, if you're saying you were poisoned.
The poison, I'm not saying the poison was from him. I'm just saying after he said that, there were two set of incidents that happened to me. The first one was the issue of the poison. I'm not saying it's him. The second one was the arrest. And that's when I realized that there is a problem. I then went to the National Executive Committee meeting of the ANC. I reported that this is what has happened. And the president said he was going to intervene. To date, he has not intervened on that specific report I gave. What later came in, the Integrity Commission makes a finding without consulting me, without complying with the rules of natural justice, that of audi atem patem, that whoever you want to find a guilt on, you must hear his side of the story. And they perpetuated the whole narrative in the media and elsewhere that this man is the most corrupt in South Africa.
You still have not told me. You've mentioned the name of Minister Pravin Gordhan. You still have not told me, though, what is it that they wanted to achieve with wanting to dethrone you, if you like?
When I was given the responsibility by President Zuma, as he then was, of being a state security minister, there is a general belief that I'm in possession of sensitive information that I may use recklessly, arbitrarily against certain people. So that is what motivated these Trump-up charges everywhere, that I must be painted. The nation, when it looks at me, it must look at an irresponsible, corrupt, and a lawlessness person. So it's just a built-up story that has been made against me. Are you answered now?
Not entirely, but I want to move on to the ANC step-aside resolution. What's your view on it, very briefly?
The ANC step-aside resolution is an important resolution that we have taken in the 54th National Conference. Very important. That seeks to deal with, to entrench and make sure that there is credibility of cadres and integrity of our people. And we remain as an organization trusted by our people. But what has happened post-Nasrec is that certain forces of darkness have used this resolution to attack certain individuals who hold certain views in the organization. So this resolution is a good resolution, but it's a resolution that is now abused. I'm saying this abused because I have studied and looked at the charges of the Secretary General. They are arising from a legislation called PRECA, Section 34 thereof. If you look at, you read that act, he does not fall within the ambit of the people who are supposed to have reported any corruption at the time.
You are an NEC member.
That is correct.
Were you part of the crafting of this resolution?
The resolution was from conference. All what we're doing now, we have appointed a team of eminent individuals, Comrade Matthew Posa, Comrade Kgalema Motlanthe, to look into how can we deal with the implementation, and they're busy now dealing with guidelines to try to resolve this matter.
Yeah.
But what comes now as a question, and what comes as a very important matter that we must grapple with, is that if you look at my case, 3 years my name has been dragged in the mud. After 3 years, now a judge says, actually, there is no prima facie from the face of the charges. A court acting carefully will not convict this person. What will happen if I had stood aside? Who would have provided the recourse for me if I stood aside at that time? So I have a view that the principle of stepping aside must be in line with the Constitution of the Republic. You know, Koli, it has taken the ANC over 82 years since 1912 fighting for the rights in the Bill of Rights. And we're now 26 years since we've adopted the Constitution of the Republic. So the presumption of innocence until guilt, it has been fought for a period of more than 82 years. So we're now 26 years into democracy. We cannot now change and say people are presumed guilty until they prove their innocence. We can't do it the other way around.
And let me agree with you. Let me agree with you on this score. Because if we were to use the case of Marius Fransman, who was accused of rape, a court acquits him, but politically, his political career, some say he may never come back. So you're quite right in that sense, but the important element, though, is that this was crafted by your party, and you as the NEC, you are the highest decision-making body in between conferences. You ought to operationalize it. If anyone is at fault, you should look at yourselves as a collective, isn't it?
No, I agree with you. That is why I said we have appointed eminent people. Comrade Mintu Sposa, Comrade Khalim, to deeply look into these guidelines, and we have agreed that let's take this guideline to provinces.
But is it fair to factionalize the guidelines or to factionalize the attempts to operationalize this step-aside resolution? Because ultimately this is to preserve the dignity and integrity of the party, is it not?
It is not fair to factionalize this issue of stepping aside or to factionalize the guidelines. We've got to be as objective as possible. But we are calling upon those who want to factionalize the guideline and the step aside to get into their senses and do everything in the interest both of the organization and of the people of this country.
Yeah. So, final question to you. Given what has happened, a court has cleared you of wrongdoing. At least that's the one aspect, by the way, because there is still the Mpumalanga leg, which has to do with land issues, isn't it? What is happening in relation to that?
I have told you that the last time I addressed outside court of Mpumalanga, I told you that actually there can't be a charge general there against me because they were following a car I was driving which belongs to my brother who may have had benefit dealings with some people who following the man. They followed my ex-wife and said she may have something to do, and if my ex-wife has something to do, I automatically have something to do. We're still going to go there because the matter is sub judice. We're going to attend to it, but we are making a plea to the National Director of Public Prosecution about this issue of just charging people. Charging people, 3 years later you find out that these people are not free. That is why, as I'm speaking now, I'm waiting for a legal opinion from my lawyers because a lot of damages happen on my name. All the people who are involved must be brought to book, they must be sued. I must be paid a compensation.
Who do you believe is using the Hawks and the NPA to fight political battles?
I've committed myself that at the end of all these cases, I'm going to come to you again and give you a blow by blow of who is involved, how they are involved, and what they did, so that we can get to the closure of this matter. I think it's premature now for me to give you that line. So I want to go with you systematically, so that if I I don't want to say things now.
Yes.
And I leave you behind and you conclude on other things. So I want to go with you until the picture is also clearer to you. Then I'll tell you that this belongs to this one, this belongs to this one, and what we're going to do to those people.
Mr. Bongo, I want to close this discussion with one quick question, and I'm hoping for a quick answer. Given your acquittal by a court of law, the Secretary General of the ANC faces a similar fate as you, although he is not acquitted yet. If he is going to be, should he step aside?
I don't think the Secretary General must step aside. I have read the charges, and I think the leadership of the ANC must read the charges and see what the charges to the Secretary General do not make a prosecutorial sense.
Even like with more that have been added.
But let's say, how do you charge like you're buying airtime, pay as you go? You charge as you go. We want the NPA, to conclude on the investigation and then charge a person at once. But you can't say, when you see these charges are not sticking, you look for other charges somewhere, you charge as you go. It just shows that you have a political agenda against the Secretary General. You just want him out by hook or crook. So appealing to the police, the Hawks, and the NPA that when you take a decision to charge, you must have concluded your investigation. You can't charge and go. We charge as we go. It does not make sense. It proves a political onslaught, and it proves that there are people, the forces of darkness, who just want to see the Secretary and paint a Secretary General of the ANC as corrupt. And the ANC does not have a Secretary General that is corrupt.
Bongani Bongo, thank you very much for your time, and I truly appreciate it. And I will be awaiting. I'll be waiting for you to come back here and list the Stellenbosch people and list those also who are using our law enforcement to pursue political battles. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The picture is complete. We just want to move with you as these things happen, so that we don't leave you behind and we don't leave the nation behind about these things that are happening.
All right.